Hello everyone, welcome to the second of the live video shows on Alcohol Explained. Obviously if there's any questions just post them and they should come up for me. I think this is working okay. Let me know if there's any problems with it. I'm not sure if it's sideways or not. Anyway, let me know if it's working okay or if not. There's a couple of points, I suppose. There was a couple of questions left over from the last session. I'm sideways, thank you, Sarah. I don't know what happened there, it seemed to work last time. Is that better? Hopefully that's okay. So yes, a couple of bits left over from the last time. Somebody I think posted a question about trust and what can you do to earn people's trust again. I don't think there's any easy answer on that, because the fact of the matter is, if you promise something to someone and then say, if you say to them, I'm going to stop drinking, and then you keep drinking again, you're constantly destroying that trust. And then when you say to them, I've stopped drinking again, they just assume you're going to be starting again at some point, so they don't trust you. And the only way you can prove to them really is to stay stopped. There's no easy way around it. You've just got to stay stopped. And eventually, over time, hopefully, they will realise that you have genuinely stopped at that point as time wears on. And hopefully that will rebuild the trust. As I say, I don't think there's any particular shortcut, to be honest. There was, I think, when I first posted about doing it at this time, there was a couple of people, there seemed to be quite a lot of interest in doing it a bit later. The problem I have with that is I finish work at sort of 5:30, 6, and then I go home and spend some time with the family before my boys go to bed, so it's a bit difficult doing it earlier. It tends to be this sort of time or after they're in bed, which is kind of 8 or 9 at night, which is what I did last time. So I was hoping to vary the timings a bit. I don't know if anyone's got any specific questions. If not, I think there was one left over from last time which I can deal with, which somebody asked what my favourite quitlet was, apart from Alcohol Explained, of course. One of my favourite ones, bizarrely, isn't a stop drinking book. It is Alan Carr's Only Way to Stop Smoking Permanently. And the reason I'm mentioning that first is because basically if it wasn't for Alan Carr, there would be no Alcohol Explained. Alan Carr certainly paved the way for me and got me thinking along the lines of sort of trying to analyse and understand addiction, and particularly addiction to alcohol. And it was reading his book, The Only Way to Stop Smoking Permanently, that really started me thinking about things along those lines. It's well worth a read. It's a bit dated now. I think we've come on in our understanding a bit, but that's why I'm mentioning it as the first one. There's quite a few different books out there. Okay, so I've got a question from Tony Smith. Let's have a look. Please discuss why some people read your book and stop, while others, like me, still have the desire, even though they know there are no benefits. I think the answer to that is, as I mentioned previously, the key to quitting, or let's start even earlier than that, where we are with addiction is basically where a part of the addict's brain still believes there is some kind of benefit to taking the drug, or they believe they need it or have to have it in order to cope with or enjoy certain situations. And what we're trying to do is to put them in the frame of mind where they no longer have any desire whatsoever to drink. But the problem is, of course, all our minds work differently, and different things will work for different people. Okay, so for some people, reading Alcohol Explained is the trigger, the trip that moves them from wanting a drink to just simply not wanting to have another drink. If it works properly, then that's great, that's how it should work. It doesn't work like that for everyone, because we all see things differently, we all understand things differently, we have slightly different ways of seeing things, we also respond to different language. So I think that's the reason why. And what I would say is if it hasn't worked and you're still struggling, keep looking elsewhere. Which brings me, I suppose, back to the other Quit Lit. The other main book out there at the moment that's helping people is This Naked Mind by Annie Grace. That's fantastically helpful for a lot of people, and the reason I particularly like that book and why it's a particular favourite of mine is some people respond well to the sort of the autobiographical books, people talking about their own experiences. For me personally, I prefer the more objective view of it, breaking down and explaining it all, and I think Annie takes a much more objective view, which I particularly enjoy. I also have to mention, obviously, Craig Beck, although I'm only just started to read his book, I'm about a fifth of the way through it, Alcohol Lied to Me. That's got a very good reputation. The reason I'm mentioning it is because he did a video about the 5 best Quit Lit books, and mentioned Alcohol Explained on there, which is very kind of him. So that's got a very good reputation. In terms of the biography books more, obviously the 2 main ones are the Sober Diaries. I really enjoyed the Sober Diaries. I thought it was fantastic. It was just an all-out good read. I enjoyed it. There's not many books I genuinely enjoy, but that was one of them. And of course, Joy of Being Sober by Catherine Gray is another one. So I suppose they're the main ones. I'll just see if there's any other questions then. Yeah, I think that's, I don't know if anyone's got any other questions. I think that pretty much dealt with all of them so far. So I've done the Quit Lit, the Trust. So yeah, any more questions people put on? Otherwise, I think that's pretty much it. I think Rob there, he's saying, totally agree with you. Stop drinking along with all the behaviours that went with it. I'm regaining the trust of my loved ones, but most importantly, trust in myself. I think cultivating that is the first step. That's a very good point. Yeah, and I think that's it. It really is. It just takes time. The more people you're with people and you're not drinking, the more they will learn to trust you. And it does take a lot of time, and it is difficult. And again, yeah, that confidence in yourself as well, because don't forget, emotion is catching. And that's not just a flippant comment, it is. That's why during the Second World War, the officers used to walk behind the men and shoot them if they started to drop back, because as soon as one person starts to panic, it just spreads like wildfire. If you're confident in your sobriety, I think that comes across with people as well. If you're trying to earn the trust of your family and you're sort of sat there pining for a drink, they're going to pick up on that, and they're going to realise your sobriety is quite shaky. Whereas if you're sat there fairly comfortable and confident, especially in social and drinking situations, they're going to pick up on that as well, and they're going to realise you've actually cracked it properly. So I wonder, so Gary, oh hi Gary, I wonder if some people see sobriety as some sort of life failure. That's a really good point actually. After all, everyone drinks, don't they? So many revel in their horror stories. It's like a badge of honour in some cases. Yeah, I think that's... that tends to be where we are at the moment, doesn't it? I think that's an excellent point. I think that sort of harkens back to that old-fashioned view of alcoholism and how it's some kind of disease and something to be ashamed of. And yeah, I think that certainly is the old-fashioned view of it, isn't it? It's that's how we approach it, and that's, I think, one of the mindsets we need to try and change. People sort of start off by thinking, do I have a problem with alcohol? If yes, quit. If no, continue. That shouldn't be what we're asking at all. It should be, am I getting more out of this than I'm putting in? And if the answer is no, we quit. And really, issues of addiction are neither in or there. The more addicted you are to it, the more the downside, but then equally, the more you need it. So I think it's a bit nonsensical to take it that way. But no, I completely agree. It's an interesting one, that, because it is seen as a badge of failure. But again, when you dig into it, that's complete nonsense, because I think it takes the stronger person to quit. The easy option really is to just keep drinking. To actually, one, admit you've got a problem, but two, to do something about it takes strength. But even more than that, the thing that takes the most courage and strength is to say to yourself, I'm not going to drink again. I'm going to go to social situations and frankly be brave enough to go through them without having to take a drug to get through it. So I think that's an excellent point, and I think it, like many things with alcohol, yes, that's correct. Quitting is seen as a badge of failure, but it should be the opposite way round. It's the stronger people that manage to quit. And even if you haven't quit, it doesn't mean you're not strong. I think even admitting that you have a problem is a strength because of that, because it's a badge of failure, because it's frowned again. It does take a lot of courage to actually admit it. Someone's asked, do you send out invites in advance of your talk? How can I know when you will be live next time? So what I've been doing is putting it in as a post, and I think I've been attaching it as an announcement. So if you go into the group, there should be posts, and it should be near the top there anyway. But if you go to announcements, there will be certain things announced. So what I will do is put in there announcing when the talks will be. And then I've got another one, Mandy Walker Davis. Can you explain the total dead inside feeling that I find alcohol lifts away? It's a bit difficult because I don't sort of stepping inside your head to experience it, it's very hard to say, but don't forget, going back to the physiological basics of alcohol, which cover off a lot, but I think it's probably worth covering off again and again and again because it is key. Your brain has its own store of chemicals and hormones and drugs, and it releases them at exactly the right time and in exactly the right quantities to keep a nice balance. When there is a balance, you feel fairly confident and fairly happy and fairly positive. And alcohol is a depressant, so your brain seeks to counter it by putting in extra stimulants. Okay, and then when the alcohol wears off, those extra stimulants remain, and that leaves you feeling tense and uptight. But above all, it leaves you feeling weak mentally. You can't cope with anything. It takes away your natural strength of character and your natural mental resilience. If that's what you're referring to by the dead inside feeling, then that pretty much explains it, because that withdrawal period, that's what I refer to as the withdrawal period, that period where the alcohol wears off but the excess stimulants still remain, that can last anything from 24 to 36 hours. So if you're drinking every day, all you know of life is either the withdrawal or the relieving of the withdrawal, which is the drinking phase. So let's say you have your first drink at 6 in the evening. By the time you get there, you've been 10, 12 hours of withdrawal, which is you feeling tense and nervous and miserable. And then you get to the evening and you take a alcoholic drink, and it relieves that feeling and leaves you feeling confident and happy and positive. And that's really the benefit of alcohol. It doesn't give, it takes, and then partially restores, fooling us therefore into thinking it's a friend instead of an enemy. It's the same way as if I emptied your bank account, you didn't realise it, and then I drip fed you money each day, small amounts of money. You'd think, oh, what a nice chap, he's giving me money. But what you miss is I've stolen all your money to begin with. And that's essentially what it comes down with. So I think that's the best answer I can give to that. If you're saying that dead inside feeling is that feeling of just not enjoying life, essentially, that's exactly what it is. It's a physiological process. And don't forget, when you have those excess stimulants, you don't sleep properly. I think I mentioned in the last talk, but when you sleep, you go through different layers of consciousness, and it's very important you go through the correct layers at the correct time. When you drink alcohol, you mess with that completely, because you're either too deep when the alcohol's holding sway, or you can't sleep at all. That's why a lot of people wake up at 3 or 4 in the morning, unable to go back to sleep. So again, alcohol robs you of proper sleep, and if you've been drinking for 5 years or 10 years regularly, you've been 5 or 10 years without ever getting a decent night's sleep. Imagine the impact of that on how good you feel, and how resilient you feel, and how strong you feel. I'm not talking about physical strength, I'm talking about mental strength. I'm talking about when something happens and you think, doesn't matter, I'll sort it out, I can deal with it. Or thinking, oh my God, I don't know what I can do, this is awful. That's the difference. So if that dead inside feeling is that, then I think that explains it. So I've got from Derek, having stopped for 100 days previously, this year I'm back drinking, 52 and old school, so drinking for me is social. I think it is for a lot of people. But I'm very social and binge. I live and work on my own. If I don't go out, I don't drink. But if I do go out, I don't stop. That's understandable. I'm UK based, so we're talking about pubs. Any advice would be great. That's a difficult one, isn't it? Because if you enjoy socialising and you live and work on your own, then socialising is your life. What I would say is, for us who drink a lot, our lives revolve around drink. So when you're drinking a lot, you do things that involve drinking. So you go to pubs and stuff like that, and what you forget is there's a whole world out there of people socialising without alcohol. There's obviously people who have a problem with alcohol and have to stop. There's a significant number of people these days who, technically speaking, don't have any kind of alcohol dependency but are choosing to go sober anyway because it's the smarter option and the better option. But there's also, don't forget, there's a lot of things out there that you can't do when you're drinking. So, for example, I've kind of noticed nearby at home there's a scuba diving centre. You can't scuba dive when you're drinking. If you join a scuba diving club and go there of an evening, people may go for drinks afterwards, but the main chunk of it is sitting or doing whatever you're doing at a scuba diving club without drinking. You're socialising and doing something. There's a million things out there you can do. There's running clubs, there's cycling clubs, there's, card clubs or reading clubs, loads of things. Some of them they may serve alcohol at, but unlike a pub, it's not the focus of the whole thing. So I would say, think about what you're passionate about apart from drinking and reach out to others in the community who do it, and you will find social clubs. If there's nothing like that, then find something. There's a million things out there. It could be exercise, it could be reading, it could be local history. There's a lot out there. Find something first that you enjoy, then look for your local group and make that your focus. Hope that's helpful. To see if there's anything else. So Rebecca, I've gone dry over and over, but I keep relapsing. I can't seem to get past the belief that alcohol will make me happy or give me relief. Do you have any advice for getting through to 60 days? So this comes back, there's a bit on the website I did, on one of the blog posts about ambition, and when I talk about ambition, what I'm talking about is sort of a basic driving force in all living creatures to want to better themselves. And it's made up of two things. It's made up of being very critical of what we have. So if you have something, you're always picking holes in it. So it could be a relationship, the person you're living with or married to, or the house you're living, or the job you're doing. You tend to look at it and think, I don't like this, is this, and wrong with it. But when you look elsewhere, when you look at the other house, or you look at another person in the office, or you look at another job you want, you think, oh, that would be fantastic if only I could get that. You just need to bear that in mind, because there is a basic tendency to criticise and to be very critical of what you do have, and to fantasise about what you don't have. Okay, so when you're drinking, it's something you have and you're sick of it and you hate it and you want to have done with it. But when you stop, after a period of time, it goes into the I don't have it section. So you start to fantasise about it. When you think about, so say you've stopped for 20 days or so, what pulls you back into drinking isn't the hangovers and the waking up feeling exhausted and all the rest of it. It's some kind of bizarre, unrealistic fantasy of sitting out on a beach having a cold drink or having a glass of mulled wine at Christmas or whatever it is. You build up this fantasy. So what you need to do is to keep firmly anchored in your mind the reality of drinking. Okay? If you've been 30 days without a drink, what you're thinking alcohol will give you is totally false, because it is coloured by this tendency to fantasise, to idolise what we don't have. And for a lot of people, me included, it's as simple of just focusing in on one particular issue. For me, the link between drinking and not sleeping properly, drinking on that horrible waking up at 3 or 4 in the morning and lying there exhausted but totally unable to get back to sleep, that was the thing that anchored me down. So that whenever I started thinking, oh, a drink would be nice, that was my reality check. I will wake up at 3 or 4 in the morning and lie there wide awake feeling anxious and exhausted, and then my alarm will go off at 6 and I'll get up even more tired. that was the thing that anchored me in. But you need to find out a few points of reality that you get every single time you drink to counter that fantasy. And it is only a fantasy, it is not real. So this, from Rebecca again, 30, 40, 45 and 50 days, but keep falling into old traps. Do you think there is a magic number of days where things will turn around and I will feel better? No, I don't, I'm afraid. I don't think it's as simple as a number of days. I think if there is a magic number, it's probably a year, because I think when you hit a year, you've probably done everything. You've done a holiday, you've done Christmas, you've done birthdays, you've done work functions. You've probably had a taste of everything and done it sober. So I think if there is an arbitrary time limit, a year's as good as any. But as I said, I think a lot of it is mindset. If you can hit the right mindset, it's certain you're never going to drink again. And I've said this many times before. If you've got someone who's been 10 years not drinking, but they're taking each day at a time and they're craving every day, and every day it's a battle and touch and go whether they have a drink or not, compared to someone who's only done 5 days but they're deliriously happy not to drink, they know they're never going to drink again, they're totally comfortable with it. For me, I consider the 5-dayer more stopped than the 10-year person. So from that extent, time periods are pretty irrelevant. So I don't think there is a specific time period. I think it's your mindset, and I think you need to be careful, because don't forget you go through cycles. When you finish drinking, the reality of drinking is fresh in your mind. You're probably a bit hungover, you're blurry-eyed, you're feeling unfit and tired and all the rest of it, and you can't wait to stop. Okay, slowly you go on an upward cycle, so the chemicals in your brain go back to normal. That will make you feel hugely better and more confident. Then your sleeping pattern should get back to normal. Then you'll catch up on sleep. Then over the next few weeks, you'll feel better and better and better. And it's usually at that time that you start to forget how miserable you are when you were drinking. You're still being bombarded by people going out drinking and adverts about drinking and people drinking on holidays and Christmas and all the rest of it. So you start to think, actually, a drink would be nice. So what you're doing, you're going through a constant cycle. You take that drink, it leads to more and more and more, and then you're back to square one, and so the whole cycle starts again. So what you're looking to do is to break that cycle, and the best place to break it is when you're coming on the up and you're starting then to think, actually, you know what, a drink would be nice. That's the time to have that reality check and think, well, what would it do? It will be a foul-tasting, sugary drink. It'll immediately make me feel slightly dull, because don't forget at that point you've got no withdrawal to get rid of. So when you think about the pleasure of drinking, when you think about drinking and having a drink and that lovely feeling it gives you, that lovely feeling is the feeling of withdrawing all the chemical imbalances and the tiredness caused by the previous drinks. After 30 days you haven't got that. So when you take that drink after 30 days, it doesn't do what you think it's going to do anyway. Because if this is your norm, alcohol drags you down and then puts you back, and each time you get back you feel better. But if it hasn't already dragged you down, it doesn't give you a boost. If you've been 30 days without a drink and you sit down and have one, it's just going to make you feel slightly dulled. You need to keep that in mind and the reality in mind to hopefully break that constant cycle. Craig White, you'll have to speak up as I'm in a noisy pub, alcohol free in front of me, of course. Excellent. So I'm at day 89 and going strong on a day-to-day basis. I have a solid belief that alcohol free for me will give me my best life going forward. My question is, I just endured 9 days of vacation with my in-laws, and I found it gruelling, as the focus was, to me anyway, drinking from noon onwards every day. It drove me insane by the end of the trip. Will this get easier in time, or is this something that I should avoid in future, or at least alter to better fit my needs? They're talking about making this an annual event. Oh dear. And we agree a house between the 7 of us. Dear me. Do you know, I would hate that. I mean, being away with your in-laws is probably not the best fun in the world anyway, but being away with people that are just drinking all day must be abysmal. In the same way, if they were all injecting themselves with heroin or snorting cocaine or something. The trouble is, when you take a drug that alters your behaviour, you're no longer on the same level as people who haven't taken that drug. So if everyone takes it, they're fine, and if no one takes it, you're fine. But if half people or all people but one take it, it's a fairly grim experience. And best will in the world, people who are drinking are hugely irritating. So if I was you, if you, I hate to have to say it, but if it was me, if I could get out of it, I would do. I would just not go. I mean, I don't know if that's viable or not. If you are going to feel obliged to go on it, I would try and do something so that if they're drinking all day, you either try and discourage it, which is probably impossible, or you make plans to be doing something yourself during the day. So if you're out, you could do trips out to, I don't know, museums or art galleries or whatever you enjoy. Make that a part. You can open it up to everyone, because frankly, if they come along, they won't be drinking, so it might be all right. But no, I don't envy you that. I don't think it will get easier, I'm afraid to say, because at the end of the day, drunk people are fantastically irritating, and if you're with people that are drinking all the time, you're going to be irritated and probably bored stiff. But I would try and do, if you can't actually get out of it, as I say, I would try and manufacture it in such a way that you either put some sober activities in for everyone, or take yourself out of it as much as possible. Early runs are good. Getting up for a run is great, because then you've got the excuse of going to bed early, so you can pretty much eat for dinner and go to bed, which tends to be when people start to get particularly drunk and irritating. I hope that's useful. So I'm on day 8, feeling great, running every day and reading, doing everything I can. Your book gave me that light bulb moment. Thank you, that's nice to hear. Fantastic. That's how it should work, if it's working properly, so that's good. Really good. So how are we doing for time? I think that's pretty much it. Funny enough, that's half an hour anyway. I don't know if there's any last questions, but failing which, I'll probably sign out. I'll probably do another post about doing another of these sessions. I won't carry on doing them if they're not useful, but equally if they are useful, we will do that. I'm just checking that I haven't missed any questions. No, I think that's it. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed it, everyone, and I'll do a post soon to see if there's interest in another one. Other than that, I hope it was interesting, and all the best.